in the world of AI, in infrastructure, just understanding what's happening in the world of building things on chain, join us. So I'm going to bring on Dmarz, Shah, Davide, DC, Andrew, Jasper, Mark, and Chase to share about their thoughts on how to build better infrastructure for agentic apps. So it'll be an amazing panel discussion, and we'll get everybody set up now. All right. Massive.
Hello, world.
This is great. All right. This is people coming in, and Dmarz, I'm going to hand this off to you. So you'll be the moderator, and looking forward to this awesome chat. So feel free to get started.
Sweet. Yeah, super excited. We've got quite a stacked panel. So yeah, welcome to the ETH Global panel on Infra for Agentic Apps. To set the stage a little bit, in the last few weeks and months, it's become consensus that AI agents aren't just sci-fi. They're creeping into our everyday reality, making decisions, some executing transactions and interacting with decentralized infrastructure that we're only beginning to understand. And the question isn't just what can AI agents do today, but how can we design systems that truly enable them? And before we dive in, let's meet our panelists. I'll have each of you introduce yourself. And if you want to share 1 or 2 sentences on how your work relates to agentic apps, that'd be great. I'll kick it off with, let's start with DC.
Awesome. So I'm Dcbuilder. I'm a research engineer at the World Foundation. So World is a project that sort of started from the AI side of things, where it was co-founded by Sam Altman, Alex Blany, and a few other people. So essentially, the way that it relates to this problem space that we're discussing now is that we're building the tech stack that allows you to prove that you're a unique human on chain and online, which is sort of like a necessary tool to sort of enable the internet to still be usable even after the dead internet theory sort of comes along, where AIs just like are able to do anything that humans can do, but humans should be able to use everything just as well. And there's a lot of interesting things around economics there, and just general identity that are really interesting. And you still want humans to have the self-sovereignty rights to access finance and identity in a private way. So that's how it relates.
Cool. Let's kick it off to Mark then after that.
Hey, my name is Mark, and I'm a co-founder at OP Labs. We build block space. We're working on the OP stack, meant to, commoditize rollups. So yeah, the idea would be to, create abundant block space for these agents to use and consume. And, hopefully people build some fun mechanisms on top, and we can see how the agents all, work together.
Fantastic. Davide?
Hi, I'm Davide. My background is I was doing core research on Ethereum, mainly working on fee market, MEV. And then a little more than a year ago, we started doing research on using Ethereum as a commitment device, coordination device for AIs. We are exploring this concept, defining this concept of AI MEV. And then about a year ago, I also started an AI project called PinAI. So we are building a personal AI agent. So this is the real AI side, where we build agents that have full context on personal data for people. And then we use the blockchain for what I think it's very useful for, which is trust and coordination. So I'm happy to dive deeper on these during the panel. And so we are integrating with a few of the projects that are already on Ethereum L2, Virtuals, WorldCoin for identification. So I feel that the ecosystem is already growing, and we should build on one another, make it even stronger.
Cool. And then we can just do Shah, Chase, and Jasper in that order.
Sure. My name is Shah. I made Eliza, which is an open source agent framework. Many people use it to make slot bots on Twitter, but I do think it has a lot more capability than that, and currently working on the next version of that. So expect that pretty soon.
Everyone, I'm Chase. I lead AI and infrastructure at Offchain Labs. We're the builders of the Arbitrum tech stack. So that's Arbitrum Orbit L1, L2s, and L3s, and the Arbitrum 1 main chain that many of you know is the hub of DeFi. My goal in growing the AI ecosystem on Arbitrum is largely to lower the barrier to entry and improve crypto UX, particularly around DeFi and gaming.
Oh, we cannot hear you, Jasper.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Wow, nice save. That's a quick turnaround.
Hey everyone, Jasper. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hyperbolic. I did my math PhD at UC Berkeley. I finished in 2 years, which made me the fastest person to finish a PhD in the history of Berkeley. I also won a few gold medals in various mathematical competitions. And before founding Hyperbolic Labs, I worked at Avalanche and Citadel Securities. So Hyperbolic is the decentralized AI cloud for AI's open future. So we work with open source community, we provide access to compute, and we try to democratize AI innovation and accelerate AI evolution. So in the future, if we believe that AI agents will be able to do most works that human can do, then the main users of cloud won't be just human. It will mainly be agents, and we're designing the infrastructure to make sure that agents have access to compute and can do all these different crazy capabilities, stuff like using tools, even like self-evolution and self-replication.
Amazing. Well, we have quite a panel of experts. I'm excited for this. Let's just dive right in. I think we can skip a lot of the definitions. I think people can see some of the previous talks if they're interested in those. But the first question I want to pose to everyone here is, what are blockchains, and in particular Ethereum, useful for when designing agentic applications? And what are they not useful for as well, is maybe the counter question.
I think there's probably a whole space of different products we can build, but I think the most obvious one that I've heard from a lot of people is something like a registry, and that registry could then quickly become like a marketplace. And I think that serves kind of the value, like, and instead of us we each have our own agent, sure, but probably have some kind of app on our phone like ChatGPT, or like Google and Apple finally get their shit together and their assistants are actually like useful, and they could like go and contact other services. Like, instead of having to have everything just right there in the app, they could say like, okay, well, let's go actually discover services that we want to use to extend the functionality. Like, can we actually just go use another API without having to write the API interop to every single API that exists, and let people kind of just like go and say, well, hey, I've got an app that solves that. I think people have pitched this as like Fiverr for agents is one version of this, but usually to me it starts with like, well, we need to be able to find the agents. We probably want to build trust and merit scores around them in some way. Like, hey, is this actually useful? Does it do what I want it to do? And then to me, the natural progression there is towards some kind of marketplace. Like, can I hire this agent to do a thing for me? And really, it's, to me, is all just like wrappers around the combination of APIs and LLMs. But it is like solving a really annoying problem that we've had with APIs generally, which is they don't write the interops between each other, and that becomes quickly like a kind of quadratic explosion of interoperabilities that's not tenable. And so by having this like reduced to a form, like, okay, we have the ability to negotiate this in roughly natural language and send information over that's been like whitelist to send or whatever, like your public key or payment information or like some files, then you can have this like way of like discovering and extending the capability of an agent without having to write it all. And so generally, like if someone was like telling me about their multi-agent system they built, I'd be like, okay, well, it's just you building all of them, so it's probably just one agent. But in a world where we want to be able to like leverage everybody's apps kind of all at once, I could imagine this sort of registry thing being really crucial. So there's probably a whole lot of other ways, and people are building agents into wallets and doing this kind of user side and et cetera. But the thing that I see is like, what is the L1 of agents that really connects it all together? Probably starts at that registry.
Yep, I want to kind of like agree with this. I feel that on-chain registry like actually give you much more. So for example, I can give an example. Like at Pinay, we're using registries for two things. One is like we have this data connector protocol, which is like based on a TE network. People like can give OAuth like to the TE and like start like fetching their own data from Web 2. And for this, we need the registry because we also need like economic security for who runs this data connector. And then the second one is like a registry of actual agentic application. So the design we have is that like there is a small LLM on user device, but this cannot do everything. It's going to like have some capability, mainly around privacy preserving and some API calling. And then it's calling like agent services in the cloud, right? But these agent services are registered on chain. And what you can do, you can do discovery, as Sho was talking about. You can also do security, right? And maybe like for the low stakes agent, you just do some reputation based on like the visibility you have from the past actions on chain, right? But maybe like for higher stakes agent that like handle more user funds, you want some cryptoeconomic security, you can program that in the registry. And then for like very high stakes, if you imagine like in the future, there is like some on-chain MD that does a diagnosis, then you want full verifiability, maybe. Yeah, so yeah, this is exciting, and like we can integrate with like existing registry already. This is what we are trying to design, yeah, with virtuals.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like, so what Sean and Davide mentioned about is about the registry, but besides that, I think like trust and payment is also very helpful to be hosted on Ethereum. So for example, like right now, all these AI agents, they just like run on top of like a centralized API, but how do you make sure that they're not trying to rock humans, or like it's not controlled by any human as well? And so Ethereum is the decentralized trust layer. And so there naturally you can utilize Ethereum to build trust for the AI agents, right? Like for Hyperbolic, we invented like proof of sampling, which is a sampling-based verification mechanism for AI models and AI agents. And so we need to use like stake and on Ethereum to kind of secure all these AI models and AI agents. But there are other methods. For example, like OP. You can also utilize Ethereum as the like slashing as the place to do the slashing stuff. And besides that, I mean, naturally, all these agents will need to pay for their own inference and do transaction with each other in the future. And so Ethereum can be served as a payment layer for agents.
Largely agree with everything everybody else said on the panel. The thing that makes Ethereum particularly special for agents is the ability to create customized and opinionated block space through layer 2s and layer 3s. So this registry of agents that everybody has talked about so far could live on its own chain that's far, far cheaper than using the Ethereum main chain, nor does it crowd the Ethereum main chain. These agents transacting with one another, negotiating with one another, talking to one another, et cetera, et cetera. We have some Arbitrum Orbit chains that are doing this right now, like CapEx and Skynet for AI. Really interesting. Lots of lots of customizations that can be made, but they can still interoperate with L1, with the Ethereum L1, obviously with Arbitrum, with Optimism, with Base. They can control private keys from any chain, but this registry can live on its own, L2 or L3.
Okay, I see. I think that's actually an interesting point to double click on. So there's a couple things I heard here. Is like 1 is discovery, 2 is trust, 3 is payments, 4 is interop. Some of those things aren't mutually exclusive and they sort of feed into each other. But maybe we could double click on what does make a chain good for discovery for these AI agents. Is it some L2 that like mega scales, or is it like an L1 that is like maximally decentralized? I think there's many ways you could take this. And maybe one example is like, do we have the phone book today, like the phone book of discovery for AI agents, and how do we get to, I don't know what's after the phone book in this analogy, but yeah, I'll pose that question.
I think For AI agents, like AI agents don't necessarily need to be limited to one chain specifically. Like the way I see things is that AI agents will just have RPC access to whatever chain they want. So it depends, I think, on the applications that naturally live where liquidity gravitate towards, or where applications essentially live on. Because like the cool point of agents is that you can do abstraction at the user level, where you just give an intent and the agent will act on your behalf. So the way I see things is not necessarily like which chain is the best, because there's going to be things that are better for specific use cases. Some use case is going to require like a 200 millisecond block time, like high throughput, whatever. Some other use case is going to like do a lot more volume with a lot like stronger assets. So you might want to maximize decentralized thing, because the agent is going to give you a higher guarantee that this asset is not going to evaporate in like a millisecond or something. You're going to have that asset live for 10 years on Ethereum mainnet. Nobody's going to be able to rug it. So the agent is just going to naturally do serious things on Ethereum, for example. That's just like my general take on that specific question.
Generally, I think like when we talk about scaling compute on chain, like a lot of it is, well, you probably just want it to run on one computer somewhere. You know, like if I'm training a model, I probably don't want to train it 10 times. The problem is like what happens if like let's say I'm running a long running process, and then that particular computer that I host, that I like rented or whatever, dies. Then well, I've got to like go find another one, and I probably want to wake it back up and then like rehydrate it with whatever the last state was. And so I think that you'll see a lot, I think, of like the utilization of public networks, and definitely like I know Jasper's on this with Hyperbolic and TE support and stuff, of saying, okay, cool, well, can I like go rent one container, go run my compute in it, and then if it dies, well, that's fine. I've got some system that's like taking some money off the chain in the kind of reserved wallet to go start another one. And so you could, you know, the future of this is probably some version of like autonomous life that is like unkillable agents that live forever. But more practically speaking, for business, like it would be nice to just be able to run TEs and like stuff inside of a trusted execution environment with the guarantees of it running on like a distributed public network where it could be getting run by multiple computers. And so generally, like, could we take computation off chain, run it inside of TE, and then orchestrate that through some kind of distributed network, so we get the guarantees of decentralization as long as somebody is willing to pay, you know, to get paid to host that work. You know, we can kind of extend some of the decentralization guarantees of the network onto that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally agree. This is like one research direction that we're exploring. We call it hyperintelligence. And basically, it's like autonomous intelligence that can easily self-replicate, right? Like just like what Shaw mentioned, like you can have multiple clones running in TEE on multiple machines on Hyperbolic network, on any other decentralized compute network, and they can even self-evolve by themselves, right? Like they can rent more GPUs to fine-tune their capabilities and then redeploy on all these different clones. And then they can use Ethereum or like any decentralized blockchain as the memory storage, like as the knowledge base. So although you have 100 clones handling different jobs at the same time, you still can have consistent memory because you have a decentralized network to store the memory. And so then in that sense, even 99 out of them are shutting down by the human, or like the machines are down, it will still never die because you still have one clone and still have access to the wallet. They can still use crypto to pay and access more compute and deploy more clones of themselves. And this way, this will be like the future better version of autonomous intelligence that a lot of people are dreaming about.
And maybe I'd like to add, there is another advantage of like decentralization, that it's kind of less related to this like futuristic artificial life case, and more related to like the shorter term, like digital services case, right? So like Shaw was referring before to the fact that, okay, these registries allow us to have like marketplace of services. I think the important proposition here of using decentralized network is actually to minimize rent and value extraction from intermediaries. I think this is huge, right? Like you see it in Web 2. There is like Apple charges 30% rent, Facebook like huge advertising profit, Amazon like same thing. If we have like an economy where like there is more and more services going into agents. Like soon, this is going to be like a big economic network. And if there is no middleman, then the revenue can go to the end user who gets like services cheaper. That's what we're focused on with PinAI. But it can also go to like the owners and the developers of these services, right? Which is what these agentic protocols are working on. So yeah, I'm really excited about decentralization contribution here in minimizing rent.
Free markets for the win.
Let's go. Cool. Well, maybe let's try to put our thumb like a little bit more on it. So, on what makes Infra good for agentic apps. Because I think a lot of the things we've discussed here, I personally want of my own blockchain, right? Yeah. So I'm curious, like, if anyone could expand on that, like, how do we actually make it better for an agent?
I mean, what bank is going to open a bank account for an agent, right? Like just creating a private key is all an agent needs to do to get on chain. No existing bank is going to have any sort of process around, onboarding and creating a TradFi style bank account for an agent. So it's just way lower friction for an agent to go straight on chain and just start using crypto instead of the traditional banking system.
I think something to be said too is that in the situations where you can use the chain like a database, you don't have to deploy a database, which like right now we're in this kind of like everything is still pretty expensive. But in the future, like this also just means that like spinning up an app that basically is like servicing things off of a network and doesn't require a whole crazy user experience to like provide value like my agent on a service registry. It'd be kind of sweet if I could just press like deploy and it's out there and I don't have to manage all of this other infrastructure and services. Like I think the public permissionless database concept at its best like actually just replaces the database. Especially for something where I think there's some questions there about like, well, how do I store secure information? But like obviously a lot of this is being resolved, and so I think there's definitely like just practically like you could imagine in a not far future world, maybe some more mundane things are just like, oh yeah, we just like this is how we communicate information to each other or figure out who actually exists. Like it would be great if I could search for a service and have that immediately because it could like lower the barrier to entry a lot for actually developing and deploying apps.
Yeah. So basically, we need autonomous finance, which can be done by blockchain. We need register and like memory, which can be done also by blockchain. I think the one very, very important thing is compute, because compute to agents are like food to human. If you don't have compute, the agents will die naturally. And so Hyperbolic will serve as the compute layer to provide the energy and food to the agents. And we're trying to build it as in a very autonomous way. So for example, like we support crypto payments very, very early. And now every agent are able to just like pay in crypto to access the compute that they need. And then also we every service that we have is agent friendly. So basically we provide API for agents to be able to just call the APIs to rent the compute that they need and deploy the software that they're running their own AI models to control themselves.
I like Shaw's analogy of databases, and it reminds me of one of the normie ways I've heard blockchains explained to people, which is as unified servers. So Robinhood has their server, the NASDAQ has their server, Bank of America has their server, so on and so forth. Agents can live on this unified server, and I imagine a world where like you go, hey, ChatGPT, reserve this table for me at a restaurant next week, and then it hallucinates your dinner reservation, and you show up and you're just like, where the hell, like that you don't have a reservation. All this can be proven on chain on this unified server such that, wallet A, who is the restaurant, and wallet B, who is me, both see, okay, we have confirmation that yes, I have this dinner reservation, you have my wallet just in case, so you can hold my deposit, and so on and so forth as we move further and further up the stack to more and more important, financial transactions.
I see. So would everyone here agree if they had a magic wand and we wanted to 100x the usability of AI agents today on Ethereum, is scaling compute the most important thing we have to do?
I mean, definitely yes for me. I'm open to other people's feedback.
Certainly, the thing that has gotten in the way of a lot of this technology flourishing is just cost. And I think a lot of the time, like, why aren't these things better? It's like we could actually make them a lot better if we wanted to spend a lot more time and compute on them. Like, just like a data processing task for AI. I could have like, a really complicated pipeline of things that it does. But usually I'm like, what's the simplest thing that's not going to wreck me too hard on price? Price on AI has come down a lot. I think obviously price on what is essentially also compute on Ethereum is coming down because of L2s. And then doing this kind of like, well, can we provision off-chain resources and then communicate directly with them and just kind of broker through the chain? I think the combination of all that stuff is going to lead to like a lot more business opportunities just opening up because they're like actually practical on unit cost. So definitely the cost of these things collectively is probably getting in the way of everything. Like obviously if Ethereum was free to use and compute was free, we could do way, way, way crazier stuff, like way crazier. And the only reason we're not is because we're kind of rate constrained by these things. So then, yeah, probably that's the thing that we have to focus on most to enable more applications.
All right, let's say you had it. What's the craziest thing we could do? It sounds like you got some ideas in mind.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I love like all the crazy performance art stuff of this. I think one of the interesting things about decentralization is that we can kind of go into a problem space that like a ChatGPT, like an OpenAI or Anthropic probably would just not ever venture. And some of that's going to be kind of edgy and very 4chan like, and some of it could be more like existential. But generally, I think that that's good. Like we should experiment with all these kinds of thorny social issues before the AI is too smart and we're like, oh wow, this is really, like I'd say we're playing with a warm stone. I wouldn't say we're playing with fire. It's not really a hot potato yet, and like no one's really gotten hurt. And so exploring the solution space before we have these problems is probably really good. So I don't know if I could say anything in general, but I think like all the edgy, like, kind of NSFW and autonomous agents and like, will people have AI girlfriends? I think that's all like hilarious. And I think we should just run straight at that stuff because it's like probably more harmless than we think. And it's also like, it's just the big companies can't follow you there. So there's like definitely an opportunity space there that's unique to decentralized products. Like Venice is a good example, right? Is, Voorhees, his whole thing now is you can just kind of, we can do this because they can't stop us.
Yeah, maybe I have a slightly different take on why compute is important. I mean, UX is definitely super important, but also at some point we need to start adding trust to this agent, right? Like today there is like just a token on chain, and then like everything else is off chain. And like if we really want to be able to provide like services that people can trust, we need to add verifiability, right? And verifiability costs, right? Like in the optimistic case, maybe it's less expensive, but there is things that we will need to generate ZK proof, especially when these agents operate with data off chain, like T's, attestation that need to be verified. So like verifiability is also expensive on the compute side, and we need to scale for that as well.
Yeah, it totally reminds me of a tweet. I don't know if this is your slogan, but I saw you tweet, Davide, putting the credible in incredible agents, I think is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So maybe I will open it up for one last question since we're at time. And what is one idea or product or vision you think you would like to see hackers building in the Agentic Ethereum hackathon in the next, hackathon period? And it sounds like I already know Shaw's answer. It's a 4chan AI agent. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I will answer really quickly. I would love to see the A get into DAOs. I'd love to see more like automation of governance and governance tools. deep funding and like how we reward contributors, or I think things that like are pretty good at AIs can solve a lot of that, because a lot of it is just like reading chats and seeing who helped you and stuff. And I'm very interested in all that stuff.
I would love to see AI agents applied to solving the immediate problems for consumer crypto. I'm a big believer that we don't need crazy protocol innovation to 10x the amount of users on chain today. There's just a lot of problems that people face when getting on chain. You know, like using a wallet, it's like not easy to set up. Using a block explorer, it's really intimidating and confusing. So I think using an agent to help with onboarding could be a really impactful way to bring more people on chain today.
Yeah, for me, I will be quick. Basically, we want to see agents become Ethereum validators using Hyperbolic compute. And I think that's doable, and we already built some tools for developers to do that.
Shaw kind of took mine, but around DAOs, as someone who deals a lot with DAOs, but it's really exciting. I would say, other than that, I want to see more like Yearn 2.0 style vaults with agents running like sophisticated DeFi strategies where they're monitoring the health of a loan on Aave while also, you know, trading on perp stacks like GMX or Hyperliquid and swapping in and out of tokens, earning a safe yield where I can actually trust the agent to not run off with the money or go buy the, you know, the next celebrity coin.
You know, I have a few thoughts. I guess like one that is cool that also Davide mentioned is the concept of identity and delegating identity to an AI. Some of the tools that we're building right now is sort of like, how do you know that an agent is acting on behalf of a human? So maybe like just a selfish one is like integrating an agent with World ID, and then just, you know, that the agent is sort of acting on behalf of a human. You can also like rate limit the agent and stuff. So there's like cool ideas that I have around identity and just selective disclosure of your identity and just authenticating yourself into applications, so that maybe like OpenAI operator or whatnot, like these kinds of agents can interact on your behalf in a private way also and authenticate as humans with the application.
Davide, any wish list hacks for the hackers?
Yeah. For me, I'd really like to see people experimenting with like wrapping digital services and that like generates some utility even beyond like this first generation of agents that are essentially connected to Twitter and they just like post some information there. There is plenty of like data processing heavy tasks or even not that heavy tasks that like this agent can be very good at. One example, it comes to mind, like someone deployed a Byte agent, which wraps the DoorDash API, and people were kind of like using it to like send some order in natural language, sending some intent. I think these things we need to experiment a lot and find the use cases that like are kind of like can find the real fit, and then we can start building like real agentic application on top of them.
Cool, fantastic. Well, yeah, I think we just are only scratching the surface on a bunch of things that hackers can work on here, and as well as people in the Ethereum community to develop to help supercharge AI agents. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody, for that amazing discussion. And Dmarz, thank you for doing an amazing job moderating. We finally got some interesting hot takes, so I'm excited.